Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon by Rabbi Matt Shapiro.
Every high holiday season has its own idiosyncrasies and unique elements. This high holiday season had by far the most questions I have ever been asked about a Kristen Bell sitcom. I'm not going to talk about that right now because nobody wants that. I was very pleased when I came up with that. But I will talk for a minute because when Nikki and Jasmine and I would meet, they would sometimes talk about, of course, what they were interested in. And so I'll talk briefly about a different Kristen Bell sitcom, The Good Place. Yeah. For those who don't know, The Good Place is a narrative. It features a number of characters in the afterlife who are grappling with essentially what it is to be a good person. There are a few spoilers along the way. It's an old sitcom at this point, but I won't get into all of it. But one of the themes that emerges over the course of the show is that it seems like there is a very static sense of what it is to be a good person that each of the characters in the show is judged against after they leave this earthly plane. And one of the things that happens over the course of the show is trying to push back against and grapple with the sense that maybe it's a little more complicated than that. That maybe it's a little more nuanced and fluid when we think about what it is to be a good person in the world and to try to claim that for ourselves and wrestle with that ourselves and navigate that challenge not only individually but also together. And I was thinking about that because when you open up this week's parasha in the very first verse, which we'll hear chanted in just a moment, we're told, Eila toldot Noach ish tzadik tamim haya bedorotav. That these are the stories, these are the generations of Noach who was a righteous man, blameless in his age. There's a well-known machloket, a well-known argument between our rabbis about what exactly that phrase means. You can read it two different ways. One is that Noah was just straight up a good guy. He was objectively a good person. He was a tzaddik, full stop. Or you can read it as, it wasn't a great generation, and for that time, he was righteous. It wasn't that he was objectively a good person. It's that everybody else wasn't doing so hot, so in comparison to them, Noah was a pretty good guy. These are vastly different ways of reading what we're being told about Noah as we start this story. And there are a lot of other questions we can ask on top of those questions. What does it mean to be objectively a good person? Is being good enough? Or should we be striving for more than that? I think one of the true gifts of our tradition is that, yes, we have the ability and the encouragement to grapple with these abstract questions, and we also don't only get stuck there. We have a lot of concrete actions that we are called to take on for ourselves as Jews, that for all of our intellectual questioning, we've also got to do certain things that bring us out of the realm of intellect and into the realm of action. Keeping Shabbat, eating in a certain way, giving tzedakah, how we talk about other people. Yes, we talk about the exact way in which we should do those things, and we're still called to take those concrete actions. Many of our commentators as well contrast Noah with Abraham, the first Israelite, the first Jew, because the second half of this verse parallels something that Abraham says about himself. Second half of the verse says, Et ha-Elohim hitalach Noach, that Noah walked with God, which, I don't know about you, I think that sounds pretty good. But in chapter 24 of Genesis, in a couple of weeks, we'll hear Abraham say of himself, Adonai asher hitalachti lefanav, God who I walked in front of. And so the rabbis say, well, that's how we know that Noah was just okay for his generation, because he needed that support to walk with God. He couldn't walk in front of God the way Abraham did. Now, it's important. It's important to have exemplars. It's important to have role models. It's important to have people who set a standard for us, who we can follow, as it seems like in this comment we're being told Abraham was. And at the same time, that's hard to reach to. That's quite a stretch to say Abraham was such a good guy. He didn't need that support, and each one of us, after all, are living in a certain context, a certain generation that informs who we are and how we are as people. And I would say, actually, it's beautiful to know that Noah, for who he was able to walk with God and to have that support every step of the way. So what I'll invite you, as Nikki and Jasmine chant for us, and as we celebrate them this morning, I'll also invite you to reflect on, to think about what are those actions that you can take to bring yourself into the world, to take those actions of righteousness, to help bring that righteousness into the world, whatever generation it is we happen to be living in, because after all, that is ultimately what will make this world a good place.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.